We are pleased to be joined by, once again, Julie Roginsky, who is Democratic strategist, president, Optimus Communications. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
You've had the most fascinating career.
Thank you so much for saying that. It's been interesting.
It's been interesting. By the way, can I plug your podcast?
I'd love for you to.
What's it called?
It's called Solitaire Politics. You could find it on iTunes. You could find it across every Podbeam, and it's great. You should come on.
What do you do?
You know, we interview people, and what I found, and you know this because you have a public affairs show, but what I found having done cable news for so long is you really can't delve into issues or discussions in a soundbite environment. And so what we try to do, my co-host and I, is have a show where we could actually talk about issues in a really in-depth, prepared way. And then we talk about what makes us salty that week in politics.
Love it. By the way, make sure you check out our podcast, Think Tank, the podcast. You'll be seeing more of it. You look at our website. So I'm curious about something. Can we go through some issues?
Sure.
Number one, I got to do this. The Democratic Party. You know politics better than anyone I know. Is there one Democratic Party, or is this the socialist, progressive wing of the party, the Ocasio-Cortez wing, and then Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and some others over here? What's the party?
We're a big tent. We're all
That's
comers.
a big tent.
That's a big tent. Listen, it's a big tent, and the nice thing is we haven't been hijacked by any one segment of the party the way the Republicans have been by Donald Trump. I'm not implying. I'm saying it outright, Steve. I'm saying it straight into the camera.
So the Republicans have been, quote unquote,
hijacked by Donald Trump.
Make the case.
Trumpism. Well, I mean, you have previous people, Republicans, long-standing Republicans, like Lindsey Graham, who were saying Donald Trump is a threat to this nation.
He did,
and now they are groveling at his feet, making excuses for all sorts of things that they would never find inexcusable before. He has completely taken over the Republican Party, and I'm frankly embarrassed for a lot of people that I respected in the party. Mitt Romney's a great example. Somebody who thought Donald Trump was dangerous said that he should absolutely release his taxes. Yesterday or the day before recently said, well, I sure hope he releases his taxes. You're a senator. You can compel him if enough senators compel him to do that.
So
yes.
That's your view of the Republicans. Can we go back to the Democrats?
Happy to.
You know, I saw a recent clip of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And by the way, New Jersey has its own version of a chasm, if you will, in the Democratic Party. There's the Phil Murphy, let's say more progressive wing of the party. And then there's Steve Sweeney, not in the same place on a lot of issues. They agree on some things. But let's do this. On the Democratic side, Nancy Pelosi was saying to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and others, listen, you want the new Green Deal? Great. Can you please talk to me about how you pay for it? So help us understand something. The economics of how you pay for the new Green Deal, whether we can tax wealthier Americans to the degree that's being talked about, a whole range of things. Is that an agenda that will win in 2020 in your view for the Democrats?
You know, I would just say this to Nancy Pelosi and to all other Democrats. I find it very interesting that we're consistently asked to pay for things, whether it was the Affordable Care Act, which was paid for, whether it's this. Meanwhile, the Republicans are going on a spending spree. I mean, they're spending like drunken sailors. Nobody talks about what these tax cuts have cost the economy. They certainly weren't paid for. Trump's tax cuts. Nobody's talking about what wars have cost the economy. Nothing is ever paid for when the Republicans do it, and yet, as soon as the Democrats come up with a proposal, oh, we need to have it paid for, we need to have it paid for. You know, there are offsets to, and I don't necessarily support every element of the Green New Deal, but think about the fact that this would actually save money from a healthcare perspective. People would have fewer illnesses if you had a good environmental, here in New Jersey, how many of us have to pay for the fact that we have a bad environmental outcomes here in New Jersey that cost people money for healthcare purposes? There are ways, and never mind that people talk about consistently how, oh, Barack Obama subsidized Solyndra, he subsidized these renewable energy. How many oil and gas industries do we subsidize in this country?
All legitimate points, but the economics do matter.
Economics absolutely matter. I would just simply like to say that let's run on ideas, and let's not forget that both parties have to be fiscally responsible. It's not just incumbent on Democrats to be fiscally responsible. Both parties have to be.
Well, let's connect it to 2020, and I have to bring it back New Jersey, because that's what State of Affairs is focused on. We have a United States Senator from New Jersey running for president. How's he doing, Cory Booker?
I think he's doing really well. Look, Cory, there are probably 5 to 6 serious contenders for this nomination. Cory Booker's in the 5 or 6 serious contenders. I mean, he's a senator. He's a former mayor. He's had really tangible successes in the Senate. Certainly, he has legislation passed, criminal justice reform.
Yep.
Which is important to the Democratic base and certainly something that even Donald Trump was able to support. He has a great resume, and I think he's a serious contender.
So back in New Jersey, even closer to home, the political landscape in the state. How much do you think the issues, and by the way, you should check out, Julie has a column with Mike Duhame, our good friend, who was a Republican and was a chief political strategist for former Governor Chris Christie, also in the presidential campaign as well. He was with him. The column is called?
The column is called Friendly Fire. I don't know what they call it, but
Yeah,
we
they
call
call
it internally.
it's Friendly Fire.
Yeah, it's
and
all
it's
of us
every...
It runs, I believe it runs in the paper on Fridays, and it runs online whenever we do it.
Check it out on nj.com and also in the Ledger. But here's what I'm saying on this. There was a question that you were asked by the editors there about what's going on between the governor and the state legislature. How much of the stalemate on a lot of issues, whether it's a millionaire's tax, a whole range of budget issues, medical marijuana, legalizing marijuana, a whole range of things. How much of it has to do with a personal thing, you think, between the governor and the Senate president versus ideological differences? And also, and let's include the Speaker of the House, Craig Coughlin.
A lot. I mean, it's both. Certainly, I think on
Is
some
politics personal?
Politics is personal, and relationships are important in politics. You know this because you've been around this all your life. It is incredibly important to develop personal relationships, and especially among the governor and the Senate president. I look back at the previous administration. Chris Christie and Steve Sweeney were able to get things done together because they had a personal relationship, though they were from different parties. And there's no excuse for Democrats not to be able to do much more than that. But unfortunately, it's a relationship that wasn't tended to. And it's a shame, and I think it could be fixed, but it would take both parties wanting to come together and fix it.
I know this is going to sound big picture, but I want it to be grounded in this. The governor said publicly he didn't believe in, quote, transactional politics. Whether it's horse trading, you need what? You need a road for your district? What do you need? I need this vote. He said, I don't believe in that. He said, I'm going to go out there and make the case on the merits.
Well, if he's making the case on the merits, he needs to do a better job making the case on the merits, and I would say that his press shop then needs to go out there and really put together events for him that helps make the case. Having said that, marijuana legalization was supported by the majority of people in New Jersey. Didn't get done.
You think it's going to happen?
The millionaire's tax, it might eventually, but it certainly didn't when it could have.
No, it did not, right. Millionaire's
tax is very popular, but is not getting done, and it's not getting done in part because of personality differences, and I think in part because of the fact that it's an election year and nobody wants to have any kind of taxes up this year from the legislature standpoint. But I also think that transactional politics is not a dirty word. Transactional politics means that we sit together, we figure out what your priorities are, what my priorities are, and we work together to enact those priorities.
Compromise?
Sure.
Compromise, dirty word?
Compromise is not a dirty word, and compromise involves transaction. I mean, you have to transact in order to compromise, right? And so when the governor says he doesn't believe in transactional politics, first of all, I don't know if that's true. The governor is wise enough to know that you need to have a transactional relationship in order to get anything done. He's a former Goldman Sachs banker.
He's gotten things done.
He's gotten things done. Look, he's a former Goldman Sachs banker. I mean, you know.
I would argue there's some transactional activity there.
Yeah, I would think they transact. So I mean, he's not naive to this.
Deal making? How dare you say there's deal making?
Right. I mean, look, the governor is not naive. I spent 4 years glued to the hip with the governor on his campaign. I can tell you, he's not naive about this. There's no reason why they can't sit down and hash it out.
So that's Julie Roginsky. She's got to be one of the smartest people when it comes to politics and policy around, not just in New Jersey, but in the nation. Democratic strategist, and also with Optimus Communications.
Yep.
And check out your Saltier Politics
podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks so much.
I'm Steve Adubato. That's Julie. We'll be right back right after this.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, Hackensack Meridian Health, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Seton Hall University, Choose New Jersey, and by the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor, Office of the Attorney General.